Have you ever felt like your overseas experience became smaller after you moved into the UK? Maybe you had management experience, leadership skills, or leadership experience, or some sort of a technical or specialization skills. But suddenly, after moving to the UK, you might be feeling that do I have to start from the beginning? If you felt that way, you are not alone because I felt the same when I was starting my career in the UK. And one of the common phrase I used to say back then, I left all my positions, all my experience, everything at the Sri Lankan airport before I'm moving to the UK. It's simply because I was in a survival mood and I need to start any job to survive at that point. Today, in this video, I want to challenge this common misconceptions among most of the migrants. Because later I realized in many situations this can be used as an advantage, but the issue is most people don't know how to use this as an advantage. So in this video, we are talking about common myths, what actually UK employers are thinking, where migrants unintentionally weaken themselves, and how to use overseas experience as your advantage. The biggest myth among the migrants and among employers as well that they only value UK work experience. I've come across in many occasions that employers or the recruiting manager used to say, "Oh, you don't have any UK experience. We are looking for someone who has UK experience." This is a lie. This is not a fact. And this will happen to you as well, unless otherwise you are unable to place yourself, position yourself, or your experience properly. Because of this myth, this expectation, most of the migrants tend to downplay themselves or else like remove their experience, reduce their experience and everything. And one of the biggest challenges apply below their capacity. Yes, this is a true for certain sectors, especially there are some sectors you need particular experience, particular qualifications and everything, but most of the sectors it's not the reality. What we need to understand is most of the UK employers are consider transferable skills, communication, relativity or relevance and evidence of impact. So, geography or where you have worked before is just one more factor, which doesn't have that much impact if you can place yourself around those factors properly. As I said before, there are some roles where certain UK regulations are valid. For an example, if you're practicing HR in the UK, you need to know certain set of rules, a certain set of awareness of UK labor law and all of those facts. At the same time, when it's come to regulated medical field or else legal field, or like certain compliance heavy positions, in those positions, in those areas, local knowledge or having an experience in the UK is vital. But when it's come to many professional roles like leadership, hospitality, construction and many other areas, this is still okay. You can use your transferable skills, you can use your experience and relevance to the role, communication and all of those stuff to apply for those positions and gain those positions. Many migrants assume that recruiters are rejecting overseas candidates. Sometimes this is not fully true. Often recruiters are struggling simply because they don't understand the context what you are explaining. Your CV might not translate properly to them. You might have used certain set of words and all of those stuff. And apart from that, you start believing that just adding a title will do the justification to your CV. At the same time, sometimes recruiters might be struggling to compare the scale. For an example, if you mentioned in your CV like handled HR operations, which does not give any idea about the scale of your role, what capacity you played that role, and everything. Because what you need to understand in the UK, most of the time these roles are specific. For an example, in HR, you can either work in a talent or organization development or else recruitment, or else performance management, or else ER, like many areas. Because of that, you need to be very cautious when you're adding generic statements. Instead of that, try to focus on specific roles that you've carried out, or try to explain that specific role that you've carried out in your previous workplace. What you need to understand is recruiters automatically don't know. Got it. What you need to understand is recruiters not might not have access to information about your previous organization, and they will not know about your organization, the scale that you work and everything automatically. So you need to give enough evidence, you need to give enough explanation about those roles. What you need to understand is recruiters might not have insight about your role that you have held in overseas, because they don't have any visibility about the role, they don't have any visibility about the organization. So it's your role to support them to understand it. One of the biggest strategic advantage what most migrants have is they do have vast experience compared to most of the UK candidates, or else there's a high chance that they are capable of doing multiple role, because most of the migrants tend to carry out generalist role where it does not focus on one specific area, but it focus on uh, multi per specific areas. For an example, if you are talking about an HR role in the Sri Lanka, uh, it more focus on all the aspects of the HR operation, rather than in the UK it's more focused on certain specific area in that particular HR operation. So it's your job to make sure those advantages to your benefits. At the same time, managing a difficult situation with limited resources, adapting to certain cultures, working fast changing environment, and managing high pressure work environment, at the same time broader responsibilities across the functions. In many countries apart from the UK, professionals tend to manage multiple roles and responsibilities at once. Also, this creates business awareness, resilience, and adaptability, which you can easily highlight in your CV. Unfortunately, many migrants often describe less about these aspects. Instead of that, they believe that their job title will do the justification. Sometimes I've seen that migrants often try to hide their foreign experiences by either removing them or reducing details. But what you don't realize is this might weaken your credibility. The other biggest mistake what most of the migrants are making is using local internal terms. For an example, there are certain abbreviations and everything, there are certain words that specifically used by the particular industry or particular sector in your country, which may be not the same in the UK. So instead of using those words, you can always focus on using certain set of words and everything are commonly used in the UK, where a recruiter can easily understand. And the other mistake migrants tend to make is their focus on duties, but UK recruiters are focused on impact, outcomes, and achievements. So the exercise what you can do with your CV is take one responsibility that you carried out, or just take one role that you carried out in your past organization or your previous organization, and then ask a question from yourself: what changed because of my work? And that need to be includes into your CV. That has a more powerful positioning part, rather than just adding your duties and tasks that you've carried out. So how to position your overseas experiences strategically, this is very important. First thing what you need to do is translate your experience. What does it mean by translate your experience? What you need to understand is you shouldn't assume that recruiter will automatically understand your experience. Instead of that, you need to support them. By support them means you need to explain the scale, complexity, and responsibilities. For an example, instead of just mentioning worked in apparel industry, what you can mention is worked in a high volume multinational manufacturing industry where they supply worked in a high volume multinational environment, supplying industrial brands. So, which gives them the idea about your exact role rather than just mentioning in apparel industry. Next point is focus on more transferable skills. For an example, your communication skill, leadership, coordination, stakeholder management, and problem solving skills. The third point is adaptability. This is one of the strongest skill that migrants can demonstrate. Moving countries often itself demonstrate your resilience, learning ability, and flexibility. The next point is position yourself with confidence. That means not arrogance, but with a clarity. I've come across with many candidates who often speaks about themselves with an uncertainty, without a proper clarity, without the confidence. So this will impact on the decision making part. If you're applying for your first job in the UK, there are two ways you can mention that. The first thing is, oh, I only worked in overseas. This is my first job in the UK. Or else you can mention that my previous experience gave me exposure to certain roles and everything, and you believe those experience and exposure will help you to overcome challenges or carry out these roles like that, so you can position yourself better. Let's simplify the real problem. So often the problem is not your overseas experience, it's more about that you are unable to communicate your experience properly, and this creates confusion among the recruiters. So the solution for this is context, clarity, and relevance. You need to stop asking, will they value my overseas experience? Instead of that, you need to think, have I positioned myself properly into the market to the recruiter? If not, this is a high time to do that. Your overseas experience is not something that you have to apologize for. It's something that you can use as a benefit, as a tool to land on your dream job, your expected role. The goal is not to pretend you as a UK candidate or someone with a local experience. The goal is share that transferable skills and position yourself better to match with the UK market requirement. As I'm always saying, success in the UK is more systematical. It's not hiding your identity, it's not hiding your background. It's more about how you present yourself. Once you learn that your past experience are not weakening you, it gives you more power and more opportunities. It gives you more chance to position yourself better. And once you learn how to position your past experience better, I'm sure you'll be able to land on the job that you're expecting. And if you think this video might be helpful for someone who's looking for a job in the UK or who's struggling in their career, please share it with them. Thank you.